What is antifragility? The cup is not rubber. A porcelain cup is fragile, because if it falls on the floor, it will inevitably break. She doesn't like accidents. There are many fragile things, phenomena and companies in the world that cannot cope with the loads, break and die even with small unplanned impacts or blows of fate. In contrast, a healthy human body, a dynamically developing city or a sought-after technological innovation from variability, stress, physical exertion or economic shocks, they only become stronger and develop more dynamically. They are not just strong or elastic, but anti-fragile. Information can also be anti-fragile. Books that are banned, on the contrary, often become more popular from this and eventually break the prohibitions. The stronger the shake or the greater the load, the greater the benefit they bring to the anti-fragile thing. Of course, this rule has a limit. And the load cannot be increased indefinitely. Many athletes and physiologists claim that if you want to build muscle mass, it is much more useful to lift a 50 kg barbell once than 50 times a 1 kg dumbbell. However, if you try to overpower a 150 kg barbell, you will burst. There are no miracles. The human body copes better with acute physical or emotional stress than with men. They are not born anti-fragile, they become anti-fragile. Strive to become anti-fragile, look out for anti-fragile things around you, be guided by this principle when making decisions. Stresses, shocks, tests, ultimately, variability, are useful for living organisms and systems. Excessive regularity and lack of tests soften and weaken them. Healthy eating manuals carefully calculate the number of calories, as well as proteins, fats and carbohydrates that a person should supposedly consume daily. But they proceed from the erroneous idea that we benefit from a uniform diet and should always adhere to the same norm. In fact, periodic fasting and the associated shakeup benefit the body. That's why fasting, programmed abstinence from food, and even periodic forced fasting are useful. After all, prey is not always guaranteed to predators. Calm kills. A black swan is a rare event of a huge scale, for example, the collapse of the stock exchange, which entails enormous consequences. For some negative, for some sometimes positive, but it is not subject to prediction. You can read more about black swans in the book of the same name by Taleb, published in 2007. All natural systems that have managed to survive, from an organism that has undergone evolutionary selection to a successful company that has withstood competition with other companies, are anti-fragile to one degree or another. However, modern society is always trying to deprive them of this property. Not out of malice, but out of a seemingly good desire to plan everything, regulate and protect a person from any vicissitudes. We impose fragility on ourselves and make the world around us fragile. A viable system is more of an organism than a machine, and it needs periodic shaking. In fact, a seemingly unstable system, which is constantly shaken by microvibrations, turns out to be much stronger than a system where there are no visible fluctuations. But at the first unpredictable shock, a black swan, it risks collapsing. The income of a taxi driver who earns more one day, less the other, and sometimes remains almost without customers in a day, is more reliable in the long run than the salary of the head of the bank's personnel department, who always receives a stable income. But in a crisis he may be out of work, and then he will lose everything. The income of private traders fluctuates. But they are not as vulnerable to black swans as hired workers, whose risk is hidden, but therefore does not become less. In this sense, the taxi driver is anti-fragile, but the manager is not. The small noise of constant fluctuations is better than calm, which threatens a sudden storm.